Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fearless Pricing Podcast. Today, in the second edition of our What I Should Have Charged series, we have the lovely Chloé Nwangwu, the brand scientist, who is here to share with us her story. She's director of NobiWorks, brand visibility consultancy rooted in behavioral science. She really believes that brands and visibility strategies not built with power dynamics and biases in mind should consider disappearing from this plane of existence, the Thanos snap for all our nerds out there. NobiWorks equips unrecognized brands with visibility strategies and systems scientifically formulated to help them neutralize visibility biases while commanding and keeping attention in an increasingly crowded marketplace. Everything you do to be better seen, heard, and understood should work, full stop, and it's her personal mission to make it so. Just to mention, Chloé advised the first refugee delegation to the UN recently. So, Chloé, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited, honestly, because like what I should have charged, this is an interesting idea for a podcast and also not something that I have ever talked about publicly. And I think it's a conversation that we should have more publicly with more people. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
I think there's enough of the. So, how's your life when you get up at 4 a.m. and walk your 13 dogs and stuff like that? Let's talk about mistakes, right? We're all here at the edge of our seats. Tell us your what should have charged story.
Yeah, okay. So during this time, I was actually getting like progressively sicker. We didn't know what was going on with me at the time, but I was getting like quite sick and was like deteriorating pretty rapidly at this point. In my head, I was kind of like, okay, oh my gosh, like I need to be prepared to have like I might need to get procedures done that my insurance won't cover or that sort of things. I need money coming in. Money needs to come in. I can't afford to be like choosy or anything like that, right? I have to all hands on deck. Let's go. And so I had a client go to, well, she wasn't a client at the time, but I had a few people come to this thing that I do, a visibility clinic, right? Where I will teach folks about the mechanics of visibility. They will ask me questions. It's great. That's not quite what it is anymore, but that's what it was then,
Mhm.
right? And so after this visibility clinic, this woman emailed me and she like ranting and raving, right? Like just the loveliest email, right? But all in caps and some things highlighted. And she was just like, oh my God, I have to work with you. Like, are you serious? And I was like, this is great. No, yeah, I need this. This is great. And so I'm trying to remember exactly what work we wanted to do, but it was like a typical differentiation project, except since we're using science, distinction is what we want to really focus on. But like, yes, finding her visible distinction in the marketplace type thing, right? Making her genius visible, whatever. Like, let's talk, right? Let's figure out what would be best for you, like what version of this would work for you. And I don't know why. But after we sort of got to the bottom that like a done with you kind of version of my services would be best, especially given my health, but also her needs, right? I wasn't sharing my health stuff with her, but just in the back of my mind, I was like, done for you is not going to be fit. Like, I'm not going to be physically capable of that. So this is going to have to be a done with you type thing. After we did that, I was sort of like, okay, sure, yeah. How does 7.8K sound? And she was like, totally makes sense. Immediately on board. Love it. I was like, okay, cool. Now, mm, yeah. First of all, that's the first time that I did not charge enough.
Mhm.
Just that reaction. I was like, oh no. But then as the work commenced and we actually started working with each other, it became very clear that I did not charge enough because this person was very I needed to do a lot of managing with this particular client, right? And then on top of that, the thing that we ended up with at the end, because we were doing so many accommodations and everything, what we ended up with actually is the the main deliverable that I use today that people are like reaching out to me and being like, can you license this to us? Can we be certified in using this thing? This like visibility HQ thing that I built like for her at the time, I've showed people this work subsequently and they're like, you charge like 100K for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, not even a tenth of it. Like, so that's my story. Yeah, that's my story. That's what I should have charged. Honestly, I should have charged at least twice that much. Like,
Mm-hmm.
fully, I should have charged at least twice that much. But also knowing that the sort of visibility management system centered thing that we ended up building for her was this incredible piece of work, right? That honestly, my guy, I think I've shown you pieces of it. I think I have. I don't
Yeah.
remember if I've shared my screen and shit, but I think I've shown you pieces of it,
Yeah.
right?
In Notion. Yeah.
Just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in Notion, right? And there's not a person that I've shown this to, no matter if they are working at a Fortune 500 company or like, you know, just starting out on their entrepreneurial journey, right? And everything in between. There's nobody that I've shown this to that's been like, yeah, I'd say like,
Oh, yeah,
less
including
than 10K for that.
including this one. Yeah, that
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
looks amazing.
yeah,
That stuff
yeah,
looks amazing. And like I said, whatever I asked you to do, oh yeah, that's very interesting. There's a study that came out, and
yeah,
I don't think I've seen that otherwise. So yeah, absolutely kudos. Cool.
yeah. Thank you.
Yes, just based on that sequence of events. So somebody
Mhm,
asking you for help, saying, "Oh my God, we need to work," and
mhm.
then you say your price, and then they say, "Oh yeah, immediately on board." That's like, yeah. Uh,
Death sentence.
well, there's nothing you can do about it at the time. You just take a note of it and move on. We can talk about other symptoms, but the yes response in less than 2 to 3 seconds, that's a dead giveaway that you could have charged double. And just, I think the worst case for me was the first time that I talked to a potential client from Singapore,
Mm,
because I said my price, and it was about a series of workshops. And he said, "Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I get it. That's per workshop, right?"
yeah.
And my face was saying no.
No!
And his face told me the following story, which was, if that was per workshop, that would be like a little pricey, but I get it, right?
Oh my
And for the
god.
whole thing, it's just suspiciously cheap goodbye.
Suspicious. Like I don't think we
Yeah.
can work
So
together. And
so Singapore has a really, really high, standard
oh
of
my
living,
god.
and I was completely unprepared for that, and I flopped heavily.
Oh no,
Yeah, it
dude.
still hurts. So
I mean, I've definitely had not exactly that situation, but I've definitely been the more expensive choice, right? I've definitely had somebody come to me and say, like, you're the person that I want to work with, and you're definitely like the most expensive, right? But I have this other person who's in the running and she's charging like $2,000 to do all of this stuff. And I'm kind of like, well, what can you really do for me at that level of investment? And in my head, I was like, say nothing, maintain this smile, right? Because it was the most I'd ever charged at that point. It was up there with like the highest that I'd like actually ever said out loud.
out loud is an important
Yeah.
bit. Out loud is an
Yeah.
important bit.
Yeah. And the fact that that was her reaction, that she was like, yeah, what can you really do for me for $2,000? Yes, I would rather pay $25,000 and have this done really well. And I was like, yeah, totally.
Totally. Look, I mean, it's not fake it till you make it. It's not. It's
No.
just we view our work from our own lens, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And yeah, it all seems simple after you've read thousands of pages of actual science. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's plain to see, right?
Yeah.
However, That's not exactly the same thing, but I think we talked about that. It's the curse of knowledge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The curse of knowledge or the curse of expertise. You cannot empathize. You cannot remember how it was when you didn't know all that you know, when all of that
Yeah.
wasn't that simple, right?
Mm.
It's very hard to go back and see, oh yeah, this looked really, really, really scary, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I was at the zoo with the kids recently, and when you look at these mighty animals in their habitats, and they look like real live beasts and this and that, and then you see the people that walk around them every day, kick the alligator, and
Yeah,
not,
right. And
not
you're
in a
just like,
malicious way, just come on, move already, right?
all right, buddy, come on.
Yeah,
Like
come on.
you're embarrassing me, right? Yeah.
Exactly, because they know the reactions and they know when they're in trouble and they know all of the safety procedures and they know how it went last 20 times. And if it's not late summer, just don't worry about these guys. They're lethargic. And from the outside, somebody would say, oh, I'll pay you a lot if you just go there and tap the alligator. And I would
Yeah.
say no. And you would like, well, why? I'll do it for bubblegum money, whatever.
Yeah, fully. Like I do this for free. Like,
I do this every
and
day
that's our
anyway.
mistake. We're that guy. That guy who's like, yeah, I do this for free.
Exactly.
Like, no, take the money, take the money.
Exactly. So you're wrangling the science alligators, and it seemed like it's no big deal. It's like it's just a 40-page study, It's just not a big deal. Thanks for sharing that. By the way, why did you decide to share that one?
Honestly, because now in hindsight, especially like when the number 100K was thrown out, right? I hadn't even like imagined, right? In my head, I was like, oh, I probably should have charged like 10 or 15K for this, right? That's what I should have done, right? But I was recently showing this to the Visibility HQ, to a peer mastermind group of mine, and every every person, even if they already knew what I did, was actually stunned. And that was just the pieces that I showed them, right? Like I didn't even show them the whole thing. I just showed them the pieces that they would understand with the little context that we had time for, right? And all of them were like like visibly stunned. And then one person was like, "Whatever you're charging for this, it's not enough." And I was, "That is true. Yeah, no, you're right." And another person piped in and they're like, "Yeah, like this needs to be like 100K." And I mean that. I mean, like, it sounds like I'm saying it flippantly, but I mean that number as somebody who was charged that much. But this should be 100K. And I was like, ah, oh, okay. No, so I really messed up. No, okay, cool, 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 cool. And that's why I tell that story. Any story that I could tell you, that is
Mhm.
honestly the biggest disparity.
Yeah.
Where like I wasn't even charging 10% of what like objectively this thing is worth, let alone like from a value, you know, perspective. I think that's why, just because like the differential is so insane.
It's I like to rant against the concept of objective value, but
Mm,
even worse, subjectively, that was much worth it much more. And I mean, considering your health at the time,
yeah,
if
also.
you did charge anything near this, you could have just done
Like
nothing else, and
taken the year. Like
yeah,
fully I could have just taken the year, which
yeah,
I
to
definitely needed
recuperate.
to do.
And
Yeah.
it's funny. I had for the first 2 years, I had per hour price that I thought
Oh
was
yeah.
really good because in the context of doing, I don't know, student jobs, it was really good, but in the context of anything else, it was really not. And it took a
Yeah.
client at the end of our time together, of
Of
course.
course, of course. They wait till the end.
Well, I get that, I really do,
Yeah.
right?
They gotta look out for number one fully.
He said, you're really undercharging for this. And this, I mean, this is what I do.
Yeah.
So next time, I simply was talking to a startup who was flush with cash, and I knew that they're going to get something what they actually need, and I just said the double of the previous amount. And they said, okay. And then after a while, when I started working with people in the way that I do today, which is not per hour, but let's say a fixed price, I
Mm.
said, okay, I figured out that clients would rather go fixed amount than go hourly but not know where that ends.
Oh.
Even if the
Oh
fixed
yeah.
amount is probably like 30-40% up from what it usually is per hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I did that,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
it went really well. Actually, I started
Yeah.
selling more.
Of
Uh
course. No, we have a bias. We have a bias for certainty. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's
yes.
called the certainty effect. I should double check that actually. But yeah, like that's an actual cognitive bias. Like absolutely. Like the unknown is just freaks us out. Freaks us out. It's why like SaaS companies that are just starting up, the really smart ones will have a limited time period where they do like a lifetime deal type thing, right? Because A, it locks people in, right? Hopefully the number that they're doing is at least 5 or 6 years of monthly payments to them. Or hopefully that's the kind of number that they're giving. But doing that, like it just sets them up for success.
Mm,
And people are more likely to want to take that deal than they are to want to take the monthly deal or even like the annual deal. It's a trend that I've noticed, especially with the ones that are just starting, that are like being a little smart, but like also realize that they need more capital to get some of the tweaks and things that they want done. So yeah. Okay, I just did my science and everything again.
yes, you did, and thank you. I think it's really cool as we grow, and we do. Knowledge workers can't really help but grow if they do their
Yeah.
job, right? It's not
Mm.
like it's a repetitive. You learn to turn one screw and that's it. You can
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
get marginally better at it. No, absolutely not. So 2 years ago, I had a Q&A show where people would show up from all over the world, and they would lob questions at me, and I played the goalie, and it was fun. I was fully prepared to not know an answer. It
Yeah.
just something useful came out of my mouth each time. And back then I was still doing the video editing the old fashioned way, which took hours, and my wife was helping. And I remember,
Because she's wonderful.
yes, absolutely. And so she is looking, she's sitting parallel to me, and she's looking at the video of the call, of the Q&A, and somebody asks a pretty hard question. I think it was, how do I get rid of a client that is promising to start paying me
Ooh.
just as soon as, and it's been going on for a while, and it's always something.
Mm.
And okay, so I gave an effective answer to this, and as she heard the first question, she was like, right? And she
Yeah.
here's my answer and said, okay. And then a second question comes, and a third question comes, and she turns to me and she said, with a surprise voice, "You're good." Why? Thank you for that
Oh man.
voice of confidence, darling. So
That's great.
no,
Oh man.
I mean, she hears me talking about stuff all the time. She can't help it because I barely shut up. But it's a different thing when she sees me with clients. And then
Yeah.
this was, I'm kidding now, but this also gave me a perspective of how this sounds to somebody else. Because to me, I'm
Mm.
always myself. To me, I look today as I did when I had 25, which is not true. So, but to me, that those 14 years are like a blink, right?
Mm.
Oh God, it's been 14 years. Okay,
Oh
so
God, no! Please don't do that. Don't do that. Not on air. I'm gonna have flashbacks.
anyway, cool. So, how do you these days? How do you set up your price so that none of the above happens again?
First of all, I have fixed pricing. So that's one thing, right? I think at the time I was sort of experimenting a little bit. And so that also led to my insecurity around pricing, even though no, when you're experimenting, you should charge more because there are chances, like there's a chance that you might need to figure stuff out. I have fixed pricing now, for one thing. And my services, at least with who I call my soloist, right? So like folks who have a team of like less than 10. They tend to be knowledge workers, right? But folks sort of like in that category, the work that I do in the form of like VIP days or like visibility intensives, that sort of thing, right? So that it's not taking so much of my time, but also not taking so much of their time because they also tend to be busy. So I think the combination of those two things really helps. That it's really like they're doing some pre-work before the actual engagement. I'm doing nothing really except like maybe coding some of the information that comes through so that I can be ready in time for the actual intensive. Then we do the intensive, and then all I have to do is use my nerd brain and put that stuff into whatever their version of the visibility HQ happens to be, right? Whichever pieces we decided that we would work on for them. And so that's just a very streamlined process. It does not take that long. It does not take a lot of energy from me. And also the pricing is fixed. And the pricing is and higher. And higher, right? That's kind of what I do. I'm starting also to supplement my whole situation with doing more speaking engagements, that sort of thing, and workshops for enterprise level organizations, that sort of thing, developing programs for them, looking into that licensing that I told you about before and the certifications and that sort of thing. So doing all of that sort of work, in a way, it almost sort of, I don't want to say that it subsidizes my work with soloists, but it does sort of like take the edge off, if that makes sense. There's no longer this sense of like, oh no, I really got it. Like it has to be this, right? That's not a thing anymore, right? Aside from the fact that like my whole setup is better for me, I also know that in Q2 there's a big thing coming, right? So I don't have to worry about that so much. So it's a combination of a bunch of different things coming together for me, at least. So
It's a
yeah,
big thing when you know that it's going to hurt you less to lose a potential client than it's going to
yeah,
hurt them. They don't have to
yeah,
see it. They usually don't. It's something that I like to call locked leverage because you can see, oh, yeah, yeah, you really need this, right?
yeah, yeah,
They often don't. And it's
yeah,
frustrating. And sometimes when stars align, you can get a client that you can show this to, and they will go, oh, right. Thank you
yeah,
for showing me that chasm. I'm not even going to try to walk this path without a guide anymore because who
yeah,
knows what other traps I won't see by myself.
yeah,
Usually that doesn't work, and that's fine. But it's a frustrating thing when you see something and they don't, right?
yeah.
But okay, once that happens, that's a wonderful thing. One colleague of mine called Blair Hens, he talks about the stench of desperation. He talks about clients being able to sniff out if you really
Yeah,
need to close this. And when
yeah,
you don't, everything changes. I
yeah.
think that was a joke at somewhere. How does a message from a $200 client sound like?
Ooh, yeah, yeah,
We
yeah, yeah.
sent you this and we trust you to, we really need you to come through for us,
Yeah,
blah, 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 blah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
how does a message from a 20K client
yeah.
sound like? Money sent, thanks.
Yeah, like fully, yeah, like we're good, cool.
People shoot
Amazing.
themselves in the foot trying
Yeah.
to be competitive as knowledge workers as if they
Mhm.
were selling potatoes.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to have a competitive price for this. No. I mean,
No,
yes, but the lowest price
it's
and
not competitive.
exactly. Exactly. It's about the combination of things, and the
Mhm.
lowest price is usually the suspiciously low one, right?
Uh,
Not the optimal one. Exactly as you said, why would I pay somebody just $2,000? What can they
like
do
what
for me?
truly what can you do for me at that level? One of the things that I've started saying that sort of changed everything when I'm on a like an actual sales call, right?
Mhm.
That's another thing. I've switched up my pipeline so that when it's a sales call, it's an actual sales call, not like a diagnostic and a sales call maybe question mark. But like one thing that I've said that changes everything is, look, I take 10 clients a year, so like I would love to work with you, your work seems very cool, but it's up to you, honestly. And
Yeah, that works.
I'm like, wait, you're telling me I just have to tell the truth? Like I didn't need to do any like weird contortions or anything. I just had to tell them the truth
Yeah.
and
You don't have to do any secret handshakes.
nope.
You don't have to do any rain dance before or after. You just have to tell the truth with a straight face. You don't even have to have Trump style power tie, right?
Oh my
It
god,
even
yeah.
works without that.
It even works without the power tie, which is
Right?
just revolutionary.
Yes, revolutionary, really. We're completely threading new ground here. That's very cool. If you had advice for
Mm.
people who are not really sure if they can, if it's okay to charge 2000 or
Mm.
maybe 1676
Oh,
sounds like
sweetie.
better, what would you say?
Right. I don't know if folks heard me going, "Oh, sweetie," in the background, but like that's the first thing. I
Yeah,
would
well,
express my deepest sympathy. Clearly that person is just like trying to work it out and they saw someone somewhere say that yeah, numbers that end in 97 are like more likely blah, blah, blah. Like what they also don't realize is that but those experiments were done on products, right? Right. At best, the closest to a knowledge service based service or a knowledge based service is like a SaaS product, right?
hmm
That's the closest that you're getting. And so, like, those rules don't necessarily apply to you. So, doing the whole, because I did this too when I was earlier on in my journey, right? Yeah, 1667, 67, right?
yeah,
Like,
you don't want those three sixes in there.
oh my, oh my God. No, this is why we get along because we do the nerd jokes, the nerd history
hmm
jokes. I've been there, and I also know that the science doesn't necessarily support it for a service based business, especially a knowledge based service based business. So that's one thing that I can tell you. Not all of the advice that you're going to hear, especially around pricing, is going to be relevant to the kind of work that you do. So be a bit choosy with where you're taking your advice from. I think the second thing that I would say is honestly just do the number that you want, right? Like
What would it
start
feel
start
right? Yeah.
yeah, right? Start there and test. And that's absolutely going to feel scary, but that's like a short-term scariness versus a long-term trajectory that you're going to put yourself on if you continue to charge like 1666, 67, right? Don't be that person. I would also say, and this is just me being fully biased, like 2000 is probably not enough for whatever you're doing. So charge more also. So that's what I would say. Like charge more than the 2000. Don't do the weird like reaching up to that number that you actually want to charge. Just charge that actual number and then be very choosy about where you are getting your advice on pricing from.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I mean, testing with money in behavioral
Hmm.
science is problematic for many reasons. And
Hmm.
I think most of these things, those that I've read, and I'm
Yeah.
not the scientist in this conversation, were on impulse buys. And yes,
Yes. Also,
yes,
yeah.
but nobody impulse buys advice. That's not a thing, right? No, this is, oh, this is 30% off this week. I might go and get a personal coach.
On
No,
this piece of knowledge, let me just, impulse buy that. What? Are you kidding me?
no, no, absolutely not. I've talked to a financial advisor from the US, and she said, but it makes sense from the sales perspective. I said, how? She said, well, you
Pourquoi?
seem, and you seem, cheaper. I said, okay. Does any other part of your brand communicate that this is about getting something cheaper? Well, no.
Oh my god. I have so many
Why not?
I have so many things to say to this. Like
Lay it
people
on
can't
me.
see me, but like I'm actually having conniptions right now. Okay. Oh no, 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 no. People, my friends, Romans,
Countryman,
countrymen,
yes.
right? Like it's everything. Just about everything that can be considered a brand asset is part of your branding. Okay, like I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, branding is like the colors and the no, and the fonts. No, stop it. Stop doing this to yourself. Stop it, right? Yes. Logo, color choice, fonts or typefaces, if we want to be correct. Those things are all part of your branding, not your brand, your branding. Okay. Those are two different things. For one, okay, I'm not even going to get fully on my soapbox. I'm only getting halfway on my soapbox. Yeah, those things are absolutely part of your branding, right? But so is the jingle that you might have, right? So is the celebrity that you might have representing your brand, right? I don't know if listeners will be familiar with like State Farm, the insurance company, where they have this guy, Jake from State Farm, right? Like, I don't know if you all are familiar with this character, but he started off as like a joke character like maybe 15 years ago or something, and it was so memorable and so hilarious to people that 20 years later they brought back Jake from State Farm and they handed it off to this cooler, hipper, cuter, younger person who all the commercials are Jake from State Farm, right? I say all of that to say that like your branding is anything that communicates your brand, any asset that communicates what your brand's about, and that includes your pricing. Okay, so if your pricing is out there being like, we're cheaper, but like the rest of your branding is like, nah, not really, folks may not be able to put their finger on why that's incongruous, but they'll be able to sense that and it's going to give them the willies. Okay, that's like
Something's
the
wrong.
most, yeah, something's wrong, right? That's the super scientific way to say it, right? They're gonna sense that something is wrong. No, there's an actual phenomenon for this, right? But just that lack of congruence is going to cause right? And so who knows? Maybe the reason that you're not having the kind of predictability or success with your current services might be that there's some incongruence between the pricing that you're giving and the branding that you have, the other branding that you have, I would say. Entirely possible.
Thank you. It's an interesting point, the congruence, right? People
Yeah.
say, I'm going to work on my brand and this and that, and then I'm just going to copy the price. And I had a thought the other day that it makes just as much sense to copy a logo as it does to copy somebody's pricing policy, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I failed and many of my clients have problem with international sales
Mm-hmm.
because of this, because they think about the value of money in their own terms. And
Yeah.
that's why I felt failed so hard the first time that I tried to reach Singapore.
Mm.
I had Singaporean clients after that, but that was a hard belly flop because I haven't
Yeah.
considered. I mean, I tried, but
Mm.
I that was like guesswork. And this is how most people make their prices these days. They either do their own guesswork or
Mm.
copy other people's guesswork,
Yes.
which
Oh my God. Yes, exactly this. Oh my goodness.
yeah,
And
well,
I should add an addendum, and I
mhm,
apologize. I should add an addendum, and it is this, right? If you are doing that incongruence on purpose, if you're the rest of your branding is, for example, very intentionally super low key, right? But the pricing is like very, very high, right? Like if that incongruence is on purpose, that's interesting, right? That's being a standard that I talk about is being industry aware but distinct, right? That's being industry aware but distinct, right? Like that's intentional. But like some of this other stuff that I've heard about, I've just been like, you did not actually. Mm.
a
Yeah.
very good example of this, and I really, really like the industry aware but distinct. I've quoted you before. I had a client who's a designer wanted to cross over to another type of design. So he had this
Mm.
fair amount of work in his portfolio, but that was product design. And he wanted to do
Right.
web design.
Mm.
And he said, my own portfolio is holding me back. And he did have experience in web design because he was working for a corporation for a while, but they didn't
Right.
allow him to use any of the stuff that he worked there in his
Yeah.
portfolio. So I said, just go without. I said, what do you mean? I'm a designer. I need to have a portfolio. No,
Do you? Do you?
you need to address this. What he ended up doing, what I advised is to where the portfolio should be on his website. He said, why I don't have a portfolio. And he said,
Yeah.
in my
That's good.
opinion, the portfolios are great, but they're looking back and they don't give you enough context. And if
That's
something was good,
good.
maybe it was good because of the brief or because of the people that I work on, and or because of the tools that I was able to utilize.
Yeah.
So instead of a portfolio, I'm offering a 50% money back guarantee.
Hmm.
Yes, and of course
That's
he doubled
so
his price,
good.
so he didn't actually
Yeah.
risk it.
Oh, I mean, of course, yeah, no, but
Uh,
like, no, of course you do. Like, that's
but
just
he was not
basic math.
he was undercharging. He was really good. So
Oh,
and that worked. And
yeah.
that
Of
worked.
course it did.
And
Of course
then
it did.
after a while, he had his own portfolio that he could have changed this policy, and he didn't.
Nope.
He could always make case studies to send concerned clients, whatever, but this stayed on his website. And this was
Yeah.
exactly, as you say, industry aware about this thing. So if he just
Yeah.
omitted a portfolio, that would be a mistake,
That would be a mistake. Yeah, absolutely. Because, like,
because
that's a,
you know you have to have it. Well, you have to
yeah.
address not having it or have it,
Yeah.
which is the
That's the
extended
whole
version.
industry, right? Like, that's the whole industry aware bit, right? Like, you have to be aware of what the expectations in your industry are so that you can, in fact, then subvert them,
And you
right?
have to show that you're aware. You have to be aware, but
Exactly. Like, you have
that
to
has to be
demonstrate
visible,
that.
right?
Exactly, right?
In
Like
some way.
that, you have to demonstrate that. Yeah, absolutely. That's genius. Oh my gosh.
I think
I like
it was
brilliant
great.
idea.
It turned out great. I think it would turn out great in general. Chloe,
Yeah.
tell me, where can people find you?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so if you are somebody who like I have questions, right? Like if that's you, you're like visibility biases. What are those? Every month I do a visibility clinic, and you are welcome to join. These are I don't charge for these. I get reciprocity in other ways. But like, please come with your questions, whether or not they are specifically about visibility or if they are about like what we talked about on this podcast, some bit of research you saw, whatever it is, come and I'm happy to answer them. So that's one way. If you are someone who like you hear visibility biases and you're like, no, that's my problem, like for sure, that's me. Then what I suggest is coming and doing a visibility prescription with me. That's also like a thing I don't charge for, but it's one on one, right? So that like we can talk one on one and figure out what your next three steps are given the whole visibility bias thing. And if you're like, that's like too much of a commitment for me right now, but I would definitely like to stay in your nerdy orbit, then I have a nerd list where I send folks interesting resources that I've come across, pieces that I've written, that sort of thing. So join the nerd list and you will be part of my nerd club, I guess. And I'll, if you have questions for me there too, I'm happy to answer that. So
I
like
have a
those are
question.
general. Oh,
What's the
yeah, what's up?
platform for the first two? So how does somebody get a link to ask you questions or to do the one?
Okay, so I'm sure we can provide links in the show notes,
Mhm.
but for the visibility clinic, the link is nobiworks.com/the-clinic.
Oh, cool.
So go there and you'll be able to sign up for the next visibility clinic. If you're interested in a prescription, that's nobiworks.com/explore-now. And so go there if you were interested in getting a visibility prescription, one-on-one conversation with me. The nerd list is probably slash nerd list one word. Right? So noviworks.com/nerd list one word.
Cool.
And then I would also say like I am often on LinkedIn sharing research and new applications of things. So, find me there. And I'm also on Instagram where I have an entire library of like past brand science stuff that I've shared. So like come on and check it out. And my stories are always really fun. So
Cool.
that's me. Yeah.
Thank you. Just to talk about myself for a second, that's always good. People can find me on LinkedIn. I post every week. And of course, on fearlesspricing.com, where all of these things and my newsletter and this podcast are going to have their home. So thank you. This was great. We had a lot of laughs, and it's going to be, I think, an asset to hear your experience and to peruse what you just offered. So thank you very much. Folks, thanks for listening in, and I'll see you next time on the What Should I Have Charged?